Okay, it's PAX East 2022. I'm here with Steve from Tic Toc Games talking about Writer's Block, which is described as a roguelike word adventure. Tell me a little bit more about Writer's Block.
Yeah, for sure. So we love word games, but we also love roguelikes. So we're like, hey, man, that would be really cool if we matched them up. So we're really influenced by games like Bookworm Adventures, which was, a word game that PopCap put out a while ago that is no longer available, and we were really sad that it was gone. So we wanted to kind of bring it back. And one thing we really love is that word games are super accessible for everyone, right? People know how to make a word, right?
Yes,
as long as you know the language that the game is in, you know how to make that word. And roguelikes are kind of this great framework for replayability. So we love the idea of hey, it's never not fun to make words. Why not add some progression to it? Why not add some strategy to it? So in our game is far more strategic than most other word games because, as you saw when you were playing, there are tiles that appear on the board that kind of change what you have to do on the board. Rather than just making the largest word, you want to sort of block enemy attacks or incorporate power-ups into your word, really. So going out of the way to really get the best out of each attack and defense, right?
Avoid poison.
Exactly, right? Or you get poisoned, or there's a fire tile, which if you leave it alone on the board, it'll blow up and then burn everything around it, which then debuffs those tiles in the future. So you really want to incorporate all of the hazards into your gameplay, and then as you go, because it's a roguelike, you're going to gain passive abilities, and you're going to be able to play the game much more differently because of those passive abilities. So for example, you might find we call them literary devices because our main character is a writer. So you might find a literary device that makes it so words with more than 2 vowels do double damage, stuff like that, right? So, or you'll get a wild card on every single, tile set that you have. So you can kind of incorporate this wild tile into every one of your words.
I didn't get that far. And
yeah.
I'll be completely honest with you. When I first started, because it's the grid, I was thinking of Boggle. Totally. And I assumed that all the letters had to be adjacent to each other, contiguous going through.
Right.
And I quickly learned, no, they don't.
Yeah. And I think, for people that are familiar with a game like Boggle, that is what the board really looks like. It's like that 4x4 grid. But the cool thing is there's flexibility there, so you can just go in and make any word that's available. And we're not necessarily trying to challenge you to make things adjacent to one another, because that really depends a lot more on randomness.
It made it a lot more difficult for me until I realized, I'm doing it wrong.
So, we want to empower you to make the best word that you can on the board.
Yes. And
the challenge really comes from dealing with each of the enemies that are going to show up in the roguelike.
So, roguelike is something that genre of game is, oftentimes, I guess, tied to something that's third-person action-based. So it's nice to see something else that's a roguelike that's not as Twitch.
Definitely.
Twitch dependent.
Yeah, we really love roguelikes. We played a lot of them, and like you said, they're either super high barrier of entry, strategy, or they are that really difficult, die every 5 minutes, twitchy type of gameplay.
Yeah.
And one thing we've been really seeing a lot of at PAX are folks that don't like that stressful kind of game, right? And would have never tried a roguelike, not because a roguelike wouldn't be for them, but because the gameplay in the existing roguelikes just is a little too stressful for them. So our game, there's no timers. You get in there, you make some words, and you're going to be challenged strategically as you go, no question. But the barrier of entry is low. You know how to make words. You don't have to learn, what all these different abilities do and what their animation frames are and all that other crazy stuff.
So I don't want to ask too much, but is there a plan to localize it for other languages?
That's a great question. So we have talked a lot about that. We don't have an official plan right now. There are some challenges that we have to overcome, for sure. But it's something that we really, really want to do, for sure. Yeah.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just curious.
No. Honestly, it's something that we have talked a lot about. A lot of our team is international folks. A lot of the team are Spanish speaking. Majority of the team is actually Spanish speaking folks.
Oh, okay.
So it's something that is definitely next steps for us, for sure.
Okay.
One thing we really like about the game is that even for someone who's not a native English speaker, the game, you have enough kind of, if you have enough context for general like word construction in English, you can still get by and play our game and have a really fun time.
Yes.
And it's sort of like, it's accessible enough to where you don't need to know the context on the words. You just need to know general word construction, and you can then sort of learn. It's like our game is not an educational game by any means, but I've learned a lot of words from it personally.
You've had to.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are the platforms that you're going to be releasing Writer's Block on?
Yeah, so currently right now we have a demo up on Steam. Mm-hmm. We'll be releasing on Steam. We're trying to get it out before the end of the year. We don't have an official release date yet though. And then on Switch as well.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
It's a very popular system.
Yeah, it turns out people like that little thing.
Who knew?
Yeah, I know. I'm shocked, right? Nintendo made a good thing. It's awesome. And then potentially later on we'll be releasing on other consoles, and we have kicked around the idea of doing a mobile version, but we have no specific plans on that right now.
That was my next question actually.
Yeah. We're a mobile game studio in many ways. We've made a lot of mobile games. Like that's a lot of our kind of bread and butter. And so I think it's natural for us to have those conversations. We haven't necessarily planned out exactly what we want to do yet, but we have some ideas.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, the game is fun. If you're watching this now, either the demo's out or the full game is out. So
awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Cheers.